On the banks of the Mississippi River in St. Louis, a single curve of gleaming steel rises higher than any monument in the United States, a silver arch soaring more than 600 feet into the sky. Catching the sun by day and glowing against the clouds, it is the tallest arch in the world and one of the most recognizable shapes in America, a doorway of steel standing over the great river. Welcome to Gateway Arch National Park. We are in St. Louis, Missouri, on the western bank of the Mississippi River, near the very heart of the United States. Here the river rolls broad and brown past the downtown skyline, and along its edge sits one of the smallest national parks in the country, a green riverfront crowned by the towering arch. This is where the eastern woodlands give way to the open country of the west. The arch stands 630 feet tall, as wide at its base as it is high, making it the tallest arch in the world and the tallest monument in the United States. Its stainless steel skin shifts with the weather and the hour, silver in the morning, golden at dusk, and dark against a storm. From the riverfront below, it seems almost impossibly thin and graceful, a ribbon of metal drawn across the sky above the Mississippi. Up close, the arch is a marvel of pure form. Its outer skin is stainless steel wrapped over an inner shell, tapering from wide triangular legs at the ground to a slender crown at the top. The great curve it traces is that of a weighted chain hung from 2 points and turned upside down, the strongest and most natural shape an arch can take. There is no ornament and no statue, only the clean, soaring line itself. The arch was the vision of the architect Eero Saarinen, who imagined a single sweeping curve to stand as a modern monument on the river. Rather than a tower or a statue, he chose a shape both ancient and futuristic, a gateway that would frame the sky and speak to the journeys that once began here. His design was chosen in a national competition, and though he did not live to see it finished, the arch stands as his masterwork. Raising such a shape was a feat of daring engineering. Through the early 1960s, the 2 legs of the arch climbed upward from the riverfront, built section by section, and rising separately toward the sky. The 2 halves had to meet perfectly at the very top, and in October of 1965, the final piece was set in place, joining the legs into one continuous curve of steel that has stood ever since. The arch was raised as a monument to the westward expansion of the United States. In the 1800s, this stretch of river marked the edge of the settled East and the threshold of a vast and largely unmapped continent beyond. The great curve of steel was built to honor that chapter of the nation's story, standing like a doorway between the country that was and the endless country that lay to the west. For generations, St. Louis was known as the gateway to the West. Set where the Missouri River joins the Mississippi, the city became a bustling river port, a place of steamboats and warehouses where travelers gathered supplies before setting out. From here, the routes to the plains, the mountains, and the far coast began, and nearly every journey westward passed through this single point on the river. Through St. Louis streamed the pioneers, families in covered wagons bound for distant lands with all they owned. They crossed the Mississippi and struck out across the prairies toward Oregon, California, and the mountains beyond, following long trails that stretched for thousands of miles. The city was their last taste of settled life before the open road, the jumping-off point for one of the great migrations in the nation's history. It was from near this very place that Lewis and Clark set out to explore the continent. In the early 1800s, their expedition started up the Missouri River from the St. Louis area, journeying into unknown country all the way to the Pacific and back. The arch today rises close to where that famous voyage of discovery began, marking the spot where the map of the young nation reached out into the unknown. Yet the story of the West is not only one of adventure and opportunity. The same expansion the arch celebrates also meant the displacement of native nations who had lived on these lands for countless generations. As the pioneers moved west, whole peoples were pushed from their homelands, and their ways of life were broken. To stand beneath the arch is to remember both the daring of the journey and the deep loss it carried with it. The arch is hollow, and inside each leg runs a most unusual machine. A tram of small, rounded cars carries visitors up through the curving interior, tilting and turning to stay level as it climbs the great arc toward the summit. It is part elevator and part small train, threaded through the narrow space within the steel, a slow, rising journey up the inside of the monument itself. At the very top, a narrow gallery stretches across the crown of the arch, more than 600 feet above the ground. Small windows look out on either side, over the sweep of the Mississippi River rolling below and the downtown skyline of St. Louis on the other. On a clear day, the view reaches for miles across 2 states, the whole city and the great river laid out beneath the highest point of the arch. Beneath the arch, tucked underground between its 2 legs, lies a spacious museum devoted to westward expansion. Its galleries tell the long story of the river, the city, and the journeys that shaped the West, from the peoples of the land to the explorers, traders, and settlers who passed this way. The great curve of steel above is the monument, and below it the museum holds the history it was built to honor. For most of its life, this ground was known as the Jefferson National Expansion Memorial. Then, in 2018, the grounds and the arch were renamed Gateway Arch National Park, joining the ranks of the nation's great protected places. It is one of the smallest national parks of them all, a compact green riverfront in the middle of a city, yet it holds one of the most famous monuments in the world. a silver arch soaring above the Mississippi, a doorway of steel to the western horizon, and a monument to journeys that shaped a nation. Thank you for watching. Follow for more interesting people, places, and things we cover on the channel.